There's no way in hell Bud Light is ever recovering. Or is there? Welcome back to Words of Paradise. I'm your host, Leon Idol, and yeah, there's an avenue for Bud Light to recover, and it's not going to be in a way that the current owners are going to enjoy, because apparently the original owners, the Busch family of Bud Light, are considering trying to buy back the company so they can right the wrongs that have been created by InBev. Let's take a look, shall we? Billy Busch wants to make Bud Light great again after Dylan Mulvaney fury. Anheuser-Busch heir Billy Busch has said he'd like to make Bud Light great again by buying the brand back after sales slumped, that is putting it mildly, following the company's partnership with transgender influencer Dylan Mulvaney, or as I prefer to call him, perpetually confused, grifter, and utterly annoying influencer Dylan Mulvaney. Busch made the comments during an appearance on the podcast of conservative activist Benny Johnson, which is streamed to thousands of viewers on Friday. Bud Light became the target of a boycott after the brand sent Mulvaney a personalized beer can earlier this year to celebrate sorry, you almost caught me there, Newsweek. Yeah, we ain't using all those preferred pronouns for this absolute mental case. His 365 days of girlhood as part of a promotional campaign. Isn't that strange that he calls it 365 days of girlhood? Like, this is a fully functioning adult well, I don't know about fully functioning, but this is an adult male. So if you were to say womanhood, I'd almost understand. Like, I would still roast you for being an insane creep, but at least womanhood is semi-understandable. But girlhood, like underage, that adds a bit of a creep factor to it, or am I crazy? The U.S. sales revenue for Anheuser-Busch Bud Light parent company fell by 10.5% on the second quarter of 2023. 10.5%. Now that doesn't sound like a lot until you do the math. $400 million. That is right. Because Bud Light sent Dylan Mulvaney a can representing 365 days of girlhood, people stopped buying to the point where they have lost $400 million. That is absolutely bananas. And yeah, people clearly got some strong opinions on this. If I was to say, 10.5% sales dip without a number attached to it, yeah, that's easy. 10.5% of $100, yeah, it's a little over $10, whatever. But $400 million, that people clearly are not fans of this. This is not slowing down anytime soon. It is no wonder that the original heir, Billy Busch, the family heir to this name, wants to buy back his disgraced company's name, at least according to the latest financial report. But the company attributing a sharp fall in sales to wholesalers and retailers, primarily due to the volume and decline of Bud Light. In answer to a question from Johnson, Busch said he'd be interested in purchasing Bud Light if its parent company puts it on the market. Now, that is the catch. InBev, the current owners of Bud Light, would have to put it on the market. But, again, $400 million in lost sales. If it was me, if I owned this company, and I saw that in 5 months we lost $400 million, that is almost $100 million a month. Yeah, screw it. I would absolutely put it on the market. Just cut my losses, whatever. We're already seeing something similar with Disney and Star Wars and the sheer amount of money that Disney Star Wars has lost after they bought Star Wars for untold billions. Like, it would be so simple to just wipe my hands clean of the problem, sell it. So many other companies out there probably don't realize, like beers, people don't realize are owned by InBev. They'll continue to make money on those, whatnot, because I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure other beers owned by InBev are not being hit near as hard. The controversy is stuck to Bud Light. So it is so easy to just wash your hands of it. It's easy just to wash your hands with something that looks and tastes like piss and just give it back to the people, and not give it, they would still be selling it, so there might be some chance of profit back to the individuals that originally held the ownership of it. He said, I know Anheuser-Busch InBev just sold off 8 brands. They've already sold stuff before. This is nothing new. InBev has already sold 8 other brands. So it's absolutely plausible to believe that they'd be willing to sell Bud Light. If they've sold 8 other brands that were not embroiled in a controversy that lost them $400 million, yeah, I could see them doing so. If they ever decide to sell the Bud Light brand, they could sell it to me. I'd sure as heck try to pull some people together and buy the brand because I think we can make Bud Light great again. The end phrase is a modified version of the Make America Great Again slogan, which Donald Trump used during his 2016 presidential campaign. InBev, a Belgian brewing firm, purchased Bud Light's parent company Anheuser-Busch in 2008 for around $52 billion. So yeah, they purchased it for $52 billion. They've lost $400 million. That's not a huge disparity in the grand scheme of things, but that's not exactly a trend you want to continue, and this is absolutely going to continue. They're never getting those sales back. That money is not coming back. These people are gone. This has evolved beyond a boycott. If it was a boycott, they could course correct people. That's what boycotts are for. Stop doing XYZ until you course correct. there's no course correcting here because the damage is done. Once a boycott goes on for 5 months, at that point it's just an accepted lifestyle choice. So yeah, they clearly have an opportunity to wash their hands of this whole thing, because while it seems like they bought a lot, they spent a lot, $52 billion in 2008, when you're not going to make money for the foreseeable rest of the future, people have made up their minds. This would be over by now if people were going to forget about this. But they haven't. The boycott's been going on longer, or just longer than the SAG-AFTRA strike, and there's no end in sight for that. There's certainly no end in sight for this boycott stuff. So yeah, I keep saying boycott. It's not even a boycott at this point. There's no end in sight for Bud Light sales to continue to drop, or at least never reach those peaks again. The Busch family, which had owned Anheuser-Busch for more than a century, had reduced its stake in the company between 1989 and 2008, leaving it unable to stop the sale from going through. Morons on their part, but hindsight's 2020, I guess. Asked what advice he'd give current Bud Light executives, Busch replied, "I would have first said, watch out who the marketing people are that you hire. They're these young, woke," and then I don't know, maybe he trails off or if it's censored, "who want to push political agendas down your throat coming out of these woke schools." Clearly, Billy Busch here is plugged into the public consciousness. He knows exactly what is going on, because these are the types of things that your boy and others in this sphere have been talking about for literal years, since like 2016 or so, maybe even as far back as 2014, which means we're rallying up on a decade of this being the case. It'd be pretty hard for people to not acknowledge this unless you were being willfully ignorant. Yeah, he knows for sure. He is watch who you hire. Watch who you hire for your marketing. Marketing is how you get your products out there to the masses. And when you have people so stupid, so drastically messed up in the head that they think doing things like with the Dylan Mulvaney stuff is a good idea, it doesn't take a genius to realize that, man, these red-blooded Americans that love to, drink their beer and watch football, they don't want to see Dylan Mulvaney partner with Bud Light. That's something you partner with, like, I don't know, Sephora or whatever, Ulta, whatever beauty brands. Those are the type, because those are bought by women. Women, of course, so soft-hearted, they'll easily fall for stuff like that. But your red-blooded pickup truck driving, shotgun shooting Americans, they're not gonna put up with this sort of stuff. And Billy Busch is smart enough to know that. But again, it's not even something that takes a genius. And he's talking about how these political agendas are being pushed down your throat because they're coming out of woke schools. Clearly, he's paying attention to what's actually going on in the world. This isn't just something that has to do with Bud Light and marketing. He can talk about the woke academia and how much they're indoctrinating these, I want to say kids. They're adults, but they're kids at the end of the day. So yeah, I don't know. I'm starting to like this guy. I would still never really drink your beer, but I'm starting to like where your head's at, Billy. Coming out with an ad that the beer drinker can't relate to just doesn't make sense. Yet somehow they did it anyway. They wanted to call, everyone's so fratty, the fratty beer drinkers, but at least they bought the product. Newsweek has contacted Anheuser-Busch InBev for comment via email. Busch claimed those running InBev had trouble relating to the customer base of the iconic American brands that they took over. He said, "I don't think the new company InBev really understood their audience." It makes sense. I didn't realize they were a Belgian company. So yeah, Belgium, that's in Europe. Europe is infinitely more woke than the West. I'm sure they just thought, oh yeah, this is how the world works, this is how everyone works. You see here us in Europe, and we're just totally accepting of everything because we have no free speech and we have open borders in all of our countries, and that's why you've got a large contingent of the Muslim population coming in and screwing over a bunch of European countries. I'm sure America's just like that. They love trans people. They love these absolutely demented influencers that are trying to indoctrinate their kids and pretend that men can be women and women can be men, when that's not how science works at all. So yeah, clearly they don't understand their audience, because they probably think that their entire audience is just like Europe, which is already a cesspool of a country. They're a foreign company. They come to America. They really know financials. They know how to cut expensive. They're great at that kind of stuff, but they really know the American audience, the Bud Light drinkers. Obviously not, or else they would have come up with wouldn't have come up with an advertising campaign like they did. I mean, I'll be real with you guys. If he does get this, if he buys the company back, if he buys Bud Light as a brand back, I would genuinely buy something. Like, I'm not going to drink it again. I'm not a big fan of beer in general, let alone beer that tastes like warm piss, or cold piss if you're drinking it cold. But I would buy some just in solidarity of, like he says, making Bud Light great again, which is so hilarious. He knows his target audience. He's using a Trump slogan. Clearly, he knows the target audience. Like, I would genuinely buy some. I don't know, maybe do a Bud Light themed party or something. So there it is. It is entirely possible that Bud Light could actually go back to the original owners, and if that's the case, things could change, and likely would change if we were to take Billy Busch at his word. Now the question is, does anyone care at this point? Will they be able to actually earn back all those customers that they had burned previously? How many people are plugged into the public consciousness and do know, hey, Bud Light's under new ownership, and it's people that don't hate me. I'm willing to go back and give my money to them. I mean, you would have to do one hell of a marketing campaign, but then again, $400 billion lost, I'm pretty sure anything cheaper is like, yeah, we'll go ahead and take that. I wonder what they would even sell it for. If InBev decided to sell it, what would they sell it for? But my bigger question, would you guys buy it? Any of my listeners, if this happened, would you buy Bud Light if it was bought back by the Busch family? I want to know in the comments down below. I also want to know on Twitter, where you can find me at BoltTheWord. And please just subscribe. I am a nerdy news channel. I cover nerdy news every day. And while, again, this video wasn't particularly nerdy, there's a very massive cultural shift going on, and things like these easily compound to it. And while nerd culture is definitely part of pop culture as a whole, which is part of the larger culture as a whole, things like these are just as important. And I want to make sure that the word gets out there. So yes, definitely let me know in the comments. And if this wasn't nerdy enough for you, I got plenty of nerd videos in the back catalog that you can absolutely take a look at, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on those too. But until then, it's all here in the nerdosphere, and this has been Words of Paradise.